The morning of October 14th, 2008, began like any other in the quiet town of Ashwood, Colorado. The autumn air was crisp, golden leaves drifted across quiet streets, and the first students were arriving at Ashwood Elementary School. 34-year-old Emily Carter, a fifth-grade teacher loved by her students and respected by her colleagues, parked her silver Honda Civic in the faculty lot at exactly 7:18 a.m. Security cameras captured her walking toward the school entrance carrying a leather satchel, a coffee cup, and a stack of graded papers. She smiled at the school custodian. "Morning, Bill." "Morning, Miss Carter." Those were the last confirmed words anyone heard her say. Emily never entered her classroom. She simply disappeared. By 8:30 a.m., worried teachers began calling her cell phone. No answer. The principal assumed she was sick. But by lunchtime, concern turned into panic. Emily had never missed work without calling. Not once in 12 years. When officers searched the parking lot, they found her Honda still locked. Her purse sat on the passenger seat. Her wallet was untouched. Nothing appeared stolen. There were no signs of a struggle. No blood. No broken glass. No witnesses. It was as if Emily had vanished into thin air. Detective Daniel Brooks, a veteran homicide investigator with 25 years of experience, took charge of the case. He questioned family members, friends, coworkers, neighbors, and former students. Everyone described Emily the same way. Kind. Responsible. Predictable. She had no known enemies. No financial troubles. No dangerous relationships. Her life appeared perfectly ordinary. Sometimes, detectives knew ordinary lives hid extraordinary secrets. For weeks, investigators searched nearby forests, rivers, abandoned buildings, and hiking trails. Police helicopters flew overhead. Search dogs tracked Emily's scent from her car to the edge of the parking lot. Then, the trail simply stopped, as though she had entered another vehicle. But no security camera showed anyone picking her up. The investigation stalled. Months became years. The missing person posters faded beneath sun and rain. Ashwood slowly returned to normal. Except for one person. Emily's younger brother, Michael Carter, refused to stop searching. Every weekend, he walked old trails carrying fresh flyers. He organized volunteer searches long after everyone else had given up. People admired his determination. But hope slowly turned into grief. ####15 years later. Spring 2023. The Ashwood Police Department moved thousands of old files into a newly renovated evidence archive. Among them sat a dusty cardboard box labeled Case 08-417. Emily Carter. Cold case. Detective Rachel Morgan, 36 years old and newly assigned to the cold case unit, picked up the box. She had solved 3 forgotten murders during her first year. Her reputation was simple. She noticed details everyone else ignored. Rachel carried the box to her office. Most cold cases began the same way. She started from page 1. Every interview. Every photograph. Every evidence log. Every crime scene sketch. Nothing was too small. Nothing. Hours later, she noticed something strange. A single photograph of Emily's car had been clipped to the inside cover. Thousands of investigators had probably looked at it. Rachel studied it for nearly 10 minutes. Then she leaned closer. Something bothered her. Not the car. Not the parking lot. The driver's side mirror. She enlarged the image on her computer. Reflected inside the mirror, barely visible, was part of another vehicle. Only a sliver. Most people would never notice it. Rachel measured the angle. The reflected vehicle should have appeared in other crime scene photographs. It didn't. She checked every image. Nothing. Someone had moved that vehicle before the police. Finished documenting the scene, she walked into Captain Howard's office. "I think the original investigators missed something." Howard sighed. "Rachel, it's been 15 years. I know. Families want hope. But hope isn't evidence." Rachel quietly placed the enlarged photograph on his desk. Howard looked at it. "What am I seeing?" "The mirror." "I don't understand." "Someone else's vehicle." Howard squinted. I can barely make it out. Rachel nodded. Exactly. No one noticed it. The evidence team scanned the original negative using modern forensic software. The reflection became clearer. A dark pickup truck. Only part of its front grille was visible. Enough to identify one unusual feature. A cracked chrome emblem. Rachel smiled. It's something. Investigators searched every witness statement again. No one had mentioned a pickup truck. Not one. Except a handwritten note tucked inside the final page of an officer's notebook. It wasn't typed into the official report. It simply read, "Old man says dark truck left school around 7:20. Didn't get plate. Possibly important. ****. The note had never been followed up. Rachel stared at it. This was ignored. The officer who wrote the note had retired 12 years earlier. Rachel drove to his home. Former Sergeant Frank Lawson, now 74, welcomed her inside. When she showed him the note, he frowned. I remember that. You do? There was an elderly crossing guard. He kept insisting he saw a black pickup. What happened? Frank sighed heavily. My lieutenant dismissed him. Why? He thought the witness was confused. Rachel asked quietly. Was he? Frank looked toward the window. No. He remembered details better than most officers. Rachel's heart raced. The witness had died 5 years earlier. But his daughter still lived in Ashwood. She agreed to meet. Inside an old attic, she searched through boxes of her father's belongings. Finally, she found a small spiral notebook. Her father had carried it everywhere. Rachel carefully opened it. Most pages contained grocery lists, weather notes, bird sightings. Then one page stopped her cold. Dated October 14, 2008. Written in neat blue ink. Asterisk, teacher got into black pickup after arguing with driver. Asterisk. Asterisk, truck had broken eagle emblem. Asterisk. Asterisk, driver wearing green work jacket. Asterisk. Rachel looked up. This notebook has been here for 15 years? The daughter nodded. Dad wrote down everything. Rachel swallowed hard. The clue police had ignored. Had been sitting in an attic all along. Back at headquarters, forensic analysts enhanced the mirror reflection again. The cracked emblem matched a limited production pickup sold between 2004 and 2007. Only a few hundred were registered in the entire state. Rachel finally had something investigators in 2008 never possessed. A searchable list. 3 hours later, only 9 trucks matched. One owner immediately stood out. Nathan Briggs. Age 48. Former maintenance contractor. Worked at Ashwood Elementary during 2008. Interviewed once. Never considered a suspect. Rachel opened his original interview transcript. One sentence jumped off the page. Asterisk, I drove my white work van that morning. Asterisk. Rachel leaned back slowly. Maintenance payroll records told a different story. The school had logged repairs completed using a black pickup. Nathan had lied. Someone had overlooked it. Rachel picked up the phone. I need surveillance on Nathan Briggs. Immediately. That evening, Nathan Briggs stood alone in his garage. He opened an old metal cabinet. Inside lay a dusty cardboard box sealed with faded packing tape. He hesitated, then slowly cut it open. Inside was a green work jacket. Beneath it, a rusted chrome truck emblem with a long crack across its center. Nathan stared at it for a long time, then whispered to himself. They should have left it alone. Outside, an unmarked police car quietly pulled into the street. Nathan Briggs stood motionless in his garage. The cracked chrome truck emblem rested in his trembling hands. For 15 years, it had remained hidden beneath old tools, faded work gloves, and dusty paint cans. It was the one object he had never dared throw away. Outside, Detective Rachel Morgan watched from an unmarked sedan parked half a block away. She wasn't looking at Nathan. She was looking at his truck. A black 2006 pickup. Recently repainted. But one detail caught her attention. The front grille looked newer than the rest of the vehicle, as though someone had replaced only that section. Rachel quietly raised her camera and took several photographs. ##### a search warrant. The following morning, Rachel met with the district attorney. We have an old witness statement, a forgotten notebook, and evidence that Briggs lied during the original investigation. The prosecutor folded his arms. It's enough for a search warrant. By noon, detectives arrived at Nathan's home. Nathan answered the door calmly. Can I help you? Rachel handed him the warrant. We're conducting a search related to the disappearance of Emily Carter. Nathan's expression barely changed. I already answered those questions 15 years ago. You did, Rachel replied. But today we're asking new ones. #, the garage. Forensic investigators spent 6 hours searching the property. The garage held shelves of tools, engine parts, and old maintenance equipment. Nothing appeared suspicious. Then Officer Ben Alvarez noticed something unusual. One section of the concrete floor sounded hollow. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed a rectangular void beneath the slab. Rachel frowned. Bring in the demolition team. Nathan remained silent as workers carefully broke through the concrete. Everyone expected to find a hidden room. Instead, they uncovered a heavy steel storage box. Inside were old maintenance records, receipts, photographs, and one disposable camera. Its film had never been developed. Rachel carefully handed it to the crime lab. No fingerprints? Forensics is checking. Nathan watched without saying a word. #, the forgotten film. 48 hours later, the developed photographs arrived. Most showed routine school maintenance. Broken windows. Roof repairs. Playground equipment. Then the final 3 photographs changed everything. The first showed Emily Carter standing beside her car on the morning she disappeared. The second showed her speaking to someone standing just outside the frame. The third was blurred. Only part of a green jacket and a black pickup could be seen. The timestamp read 7:21 a.m. Rachel stared at the image. Who took these? The camera belonged to Nathan. But the angle suggested someone else had been holding it. #, an unexpected witness. Detectives traced every maintenance employee who worked at Ashwood Elementary in October 2008. Most had moved away. One had died. Another was serving in the military overseas. Finally, they located Walter Hines, now 79, living in rural Wyoming. Rachel flew out the next morning. Walter answered the door slowly. When she showed him Emily's photograph, he lowered his head. I always wondered if someone would come. You remember her? I remember everything. Rachel leaned forward. Tell me. Walter sighed. I was repairing a fence behind the school that morning. I saw Emily arguing with Nathan. What were they arguing about? I couldn't hear. But she looked angry. What happened next? Walter paused for several seconds. Then quietly answered. She got into his truck. Rachel's heart pounded. Willingly. Walter nodded. She knew him. #, the secret. Walter looked toward the fields outside his farmhouse. I told the police all this. Rachel froze. You did. They interviewed me the next day. What happened? They thanked me. And I never heard from them again. Rachel immediately requested the original interview recording. The evidence archive returned an unexpected answer. Recording missing. Not misplaced. Missing. Someone had removed it. #, the cold case unit. Back in Colorado, Rachel gathered her team. We now have 3 independent sources placing Nathan Briggs with Emily the morning she vanished. Captain Howard nodded. But we still don't know what happened after she got into the truck. Rachel walked to the evidence board. She pinned the newly developed photographs beside the old crime scene images. Then she stopped. The blurred third photograph revealed something she hadn't noticed before. A sticker on the truck's rear window. Too blurry to read. She sent it to the digital imaging lab. Hours later, the enhanced image showed only part of the lettering. I&E Cabins. Rachel whispered. Pine Cabins. #, a place long forgotten. Old business records revealed a campground called Silver Pine Cabins, located 20 miles outside Ashwood. It had closed in 2010. Detectives drove there immediately. The cabins sat abandoned among towering pine trees. Windows were broken. Doors hung open. Nature had slowly reclaimed the property. Rachel entered cabin number 4. The floor creaked beneath her boots. Dust covered everything. Then forensic technician Sarah Kim stopped near the fireplace. There. Rachel looked down. A rusted gold necklace lay wedged between 2 floorboards. Attached was a tiny silver apple charm. Emily Carter's family immediately identified it. She had worn it every day. ##### the search. Forensic teams spent 3 days examining the abandoned campground. Ground-penetrating radar revealed disturbed soil behind cabin 4. Excavation began. The entire town watched the news. Michael Carter stood silently behind the police tape. He had waited 15 years for answers. Late on the second afternoon, a forensic anthropologist uncovered human remains. The excavation stopped. Silence fell across the clearing. Rachel removed her hat. Everyone knew. Emily Carter had finally been found. #### Nathan's reaction. Detectives returned to Nathan Briggs' home. This time, he didn't answer the door. They found him sitting alone on the back porch. He looked exhausted. Rachel sat across from him. Emily has been found. Nathan closed his eyes. I figured you would. You still have a chance to tell the truth. For the first time since the investigation reopened, Nathan spoke without hesitation. I didn't kill her. Rachel studied his face. Then who did? Nathan slowly looked up. You've been chasing the wrong person. Rachel frowned. What does that mean? Nathan whispered 4 words that sent a chill through every detective in the room. The principal saw everything. Rachel's pulse quickened. The principal of Ashwood Elementary, Harold Bennett, had died only 8 months earlier. Or so everyone believed. The interview room fell silent. Detective Rachel Morgan stared at Nathan Briggs. The principal saw everything. Those 4 words echoed in her mind. Harold Bennett had served as principal of Ashwood Elementary for nearly 20 years. He was respected throughout the community, won awards for educational leadership, and retired with a standing ovation. 8 months earlier, local newspapers had reported that he died from heart failure while visiting his daughter in Arizona. Rachel opened the old case file. There it was. Harold Bennett had been interviewed on the afternoon Emily Carter disappeared. His statement was only 2 paragraphs long. He claimed he saw Emily enter the school that morning. Rachel frowned. That couldn't be true. Security footage showed Emily never made it inside. Someone had lied. Rachel requested the original surveillance recordings again. Technology in 2023 was far more advanced than it had been in 2008. The digital forensics lab reconstructed damaged frames from the old security system. After several hours, analyst Kevin Ross called her. You need to see this. Rachel entered the lab. The restored video played on a large monitor. Emily walked toward the entrance at 7:18 a.m. She stopped. She looked behind her. Then she walked back toward the parking lot. Exactly 58 seconds were missing from the original recording. The restored footage showed why. Principal Harold Bennett had approached Emily before she reached the building. They argued. Nathan Briggs arrived moments later in his black pickup. The 3 spoke briefly. Then Emily climbed into the truck. The video ended. Rachel stared at the screen. So Bennett lied from the very beginning. #### Arizona. Something still bothered Rachel. Harold Bennett's reported death had been strangely quiet. No public funeral. No obituary beyond a short newspaper notice. No death certificate in Colorado. She called Arizona authorities. An hour later, a clerk returned her call. We have no record of Harold Bennett dying in this state. Rachel's pulse quickened. What about burial records? Nothing. The detective slowly lowered the phone. Harold Bennett hadn't died. He had disappeared. #### following the money. Financial investigator Carla Simmons examined Bennett's bank accounts. After his supposed death, monthly withdrawals continued. Cash. Always under $500. Always from the same small town in northern Montana. Rachel and Detective Ben Alvarez drove there the next morning. The town had fewer than 2,000 residents. The local grocery clerk recognized Bennett immediately. Oh, you mean Mr. Hall? Rachel exchanged a glance with Ben. He shops here every Thursday. The cabin. Hidden beside a quiet mountain lake stood a modest log cabin. A pickup truck was parked outside. Rachel knocked. The door opened slowly. An elderly man with white hair looked at her calmly. Mr. Bennett? The man sighed. I've been expecting this day. Rachel displayed her badge. We need to talk about Emily Carter. The former principal quietly stepped aside. I know. The truth begins. Inside the cabin, framed family photographs covered the walls. Nothing suggested the man had ever been a fugitive. Rachel switched on her recorder. Why fake your death? Bennett looked toward the window. Because someone else already decided I was next. Rachel leaned forward. Who? I don't know his real name. What do you mean? He called himself Victor. October 14th, 2008. Bennett closed his eyes. I walked outside because I heard shouting. I saw Emily confronting Nathan. What were they arguing about? Nathan had discovered something. What? He'd been repairing the old boiler room beneath the school. Rachel listened carefully. He found a hidden room. Inside were boxes. Old school financial records. Land deeds. And photographs. Photographs proving someone had used school property years earlier for illegal meetings connected to a land fraud scheme. Emily accidentally learned about the documents. She wanted to report everything. Before she could, a black SUV pulled into the parking lot. A man stepped out. Tall. Gray suit. Black leather gloves. He introduced himself only as Victor. The abduction. I watched Victor threaten Emily. He told her to get into Nathan's truck. Rachel interrupted. Why Nathan? He was terrified. Victor forced him at gunpoint. So Nathan didn't kidnap Emily? Bennett slowly shook his head. No. He was being used. Rachel felt years of assumptions collapsing. Nathan had lied. But perhaps not because he was guilty. Because he had been afraid. A new lead. Bennett reached beneath a floorboard. He removed a sealed envelope. I've carried this for 15 years. Rachel carefully opened it. Inside was a faded photograph. 3 men stood together outside a construction site in 1994. One was Harold Bennett. One was Nathan Briggs. The third man wore sunglasses. Rachel recognized him immediately. Victor wasn't his real name. He was Richard Holloway, a wealthy commercial developer. One of the state's most influential businessmen. Officially retired. Highly respected. Rachel whispered. My God, the arrest warrant. Within hours, detectives obtained warrants for Richard Holloway's financial records, phone history, and property holdings. A search of one abandoned warehouse uncovered boxes of old files connected to land purchases around Ashwood. Many documents had Emily Carter's handwriting. She had been investigating missing school funds before she disappeared. The motive was finally becoming clear. Emily wasn't randomly targeted. She had uncovered evidence of decades of financial fraud. And someone had decided she couldn't be allowed to speak. The phone call. That evening, Rachel's cell phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. A calm voice spoke. You should have left the past alone. Rachel remained silent. The caller continued. Tell your officers to stop looking. Click. The line disconnected. The call had lasted only 11 seconds. But investigators traced it. It came from a payphone less than 2 miles from Richard Holloway's estate. Rachel looked toward Ben. We're running out of time. As tactical officers prepared to execute the warrant, none of them realized Holloway had already begun destroying the final pieces of evidence. Richard Holloway's empire collapses. The truth behind Emily Carter's murder is revealed. Nathan Briggs finally tells the whole story, and the forgotten clue that police ignored for 15 years brings the killer to justice. Before sunrise, tactical officers surrounded Richard Holloway's secluded estate. Floodlights illuminated the long gravel driveway, while marked police cruisers blocked every exit. Detective Rachel Morgan stood beside the command vehicle, reviewing the warrant one last time. Everyone ready? A chorus of confirmations came through the radio. At exactly 5:30 a.m., the order was given. Move. The front gate swung open as officers entered the property. Inside, They found the mansion eerily quiet. A housekeeper, clearly startled, pointed toward Holloway's private office. "He's downstairs." Richard Holloway sat calmly behind a large oak desk. He didn't appear surprised. He folded his newspaper, removed his reading glasses, and looked directly at Rachel. "I suppose this day was inevitable." Rachel placed the warrant on the desk. "Richard Holloway, we're executing a search warrant related to the disappearance and murder of Emily Carter." He smiled faintly. 15 years. That's a long time to carry a mistake. Rachel didn't answer. Detectives began searching the office. Behind a bookshelf, they discovered a hidden wall safe. Inside were financial ledgers, property deeds, and dozens of handwritten journals dating back more than 30 years. One notebook immediately caught Rachel's attention. Across the front cover were 2 words. Forensic accountant Carla Simmons opened the notebook. It detailed years of fraudulent land purchases. Schools, parks, and public buildings had been built on land secretly purchased through shell companies controlled by Holloway and several business partners. Anyone who questioned the transactions was paid off or intimidated. Emily Carter had unknowingly discovered accounting records linking the fraud to Ashwood Elementary. She had copied several documents before confronting Nathan Briggs. Nathan, who had been performing maintenance beneath the school, had also found the hidden records. Neither of them realized how dangerous that discovery would become. Back at police headquarters, Nathan Briggs agreed to another interview. This time, he requested no attorney. "I've carried this for too long," he said quietly. Rachel switched on the recorder. Nathan took a deep breath. "The morning Emily disappeared, she confronted me about the files. I told her we should go to the police. Then Holloway arrived. He threatened both of us." Nathan lowered his head. "He forced Emily into my truck. I drove because he had a gun." Rachel listened silently. "What happened next?" Nathan's voice shook. "We drove to the abandoned Silver Pine cabins. Holloway demanded the documents. Emily refused to hand them over." Nathan closed his eyes. "I tried to stop him, but I couldn't." Tears filled his eyes. "He killed her." The room fell silent. The final evidence. Despite Nathan's statement, prosecutors still needed physical evidence directly connecting Holloway to the murder. The answer came from the oldest piece of evidence in the case. The forgotten clue. Rachel returned to the original crime scene photograph of Emily's car. The tiny reflection in the driver's side mirror. Modern image enhancement software had already revealed Holloway's distinctive black pickup. Now forensic analysts noticed something even smaller. A parking permit hanging from the rearview mirror. The permit number matched one issued exclusively to Richard Holloway's construction company. Investigators searched company archives. A maintenance log showed the truck had been serviced the day after Emily disappeared. Reason noted. Replace damaged front emblem. Rachel smiled. The cracked emblem. It was repaired immediately after the crime. The clue police ignored for 15 years had finally tied Holloway's truck directly to the scene. The trial. 6 months later. The courtroom was packed. Reporters lined every bench. Residents of Ashwood filled the gallery. Nathan Briggs testified first. He admitted lying to investigators in 2008. "I was afraid. He told me my family would disappear if I talked." Former Principal Harold Bennett also testified. He confessed to remaining silent out of fear after Holloway threatened his wife and children. Then Rachel presented the enhanced crime scene photograph. The image appeared on a large courtroom screen. She pointed to the tiny reflection in the mirror. For 15 years, this detail was overlooked. The technology available today allowed investigators to identify the vehicle and connect it to the defendant. The jury watched in silence. Finally, forensic analyst Kevin Ross explained how the cracked truck emblem, maintenance records, and parking permit all matched Holloway's vehicle beyond reasonable doubt. The forgotten clue had become the strongest piece of evidence in the case. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury returned. Everyone stood. The courtroom became completely silent. On the charge of first-degree murder, we find the defendant guilty. Richard Holloway showed no emotion. But for the first time in 15 years, Emily Carter's family finally cried tears of relief instead of uncertainty. Michael Carter quietly held his sister's photograph. "We found you," he whispered. Following the conviction, the Ashwood Police Department launched a complete review of every unsolved case. New procedures required investigators to preserve handwritten witness notes alongside official reports. No observation, however small, would ever again be dismissed without review. Detectives also began re-examining dozens of cold cases using modern forensic technology. Rachel Morgan was promoted to lead the department's cold case division. When asked by reporters what solved the case, she answered simply, "It wasn't one dramatic confession. It wasn't luck. It was a clue everyone thought was too small to matter." 1 year later, Ashwood Elementary dedicated a memorial garden to Emily Carter. Students planted white roses around a stone engraved with her favorite classroom quote, "The smallest detail can change everything." Rachel attended quietly. As the ceremony ended, Michael Carter approached her. "I spent 15 years believing no one cared." Rachel shook her head. "They cared. They just missed one clue." Michael looked toward the memorial. "I'm glad someone finally saw it." Back in her office, Rachel placed Emily's case file into the solved archive. She paused for a moment before closing the box. On top lay the faded notebook from the elderly crossing guard, the witness whose careful observation had been ignored for years. Without that handwritten note, the reflection in the mirror might never have been examined. The truck might never have been identified. The truth might never have been found. Rachel switched off the office lights. Outside, the streets of Ashwood were quiet once again, but this time, the silence no longer hid a mystery. Justice had finally caught up with the past.